My name is Rodrigo, and I'm from TeamViewer Solutions engineering team. And today we will speak a little bit about TeamViewer Tensor, some highlights and some main benefits that we can fetch from the platform. We'll discuss some things about single sign-on, user provisioning, auditability, conditional access, integrations, and AI session insights. Some of the main benefits from TeamViewer Tensor, including some of those features I just mentioned, like conditional access, single sign-on, multi-tenancy. Here's a high-level overview about it and how to prevent unauthorized access, how to prevent credential theft, how to automate provisioning and deprovisioning of users and accounts and groups, and so on. But starting with the basics. TeamViewer have basically three types of clients that we can deploy to customers. The most common one is this one we have on the screen. It's called the TeamViewer Full Client. And looking at it, one of the most preeminent things that we can see on the TeamViewer client is the TeamViewer ID. This TeamViewer ID is unique for every TeamViewer client installation that we deploy. This client is called full client because it can perform connections and receive connections, so it has full functionality. The counterpart of the full client is the client that we call host. The TeamViewer host, differently from the full client, it only receives connections. It can be customized, can have different logos, texts, etc., colors, so on. But in an enterprise environment, we deploy the TeamViewer Full Client for the technicians, the IT support team, and the host client for everyone else. So these clients, these endpoints with the host client cannot connect to anyone else, just receive connections from the technicians, from the devices, from the users that have the full client deployed. The host client also shows the TeamViewer ID. So, as I mentioned, the TeamViewer ID uniquely identifies every device that has the TeamViewer client deployed. Also, the third type of clients that we have is the TeamViewer Quick Support. Similar to the host client, receiving being possible to be modified, customized with logos, colors, texts, and etc. And it also, similar to the host, only receive connections. So the full client can connect to full clients, hosts, and quick supports. The main difference between the host and the quick support is that the host is an installed and managed client. So you need admin credentials on the endpoint to install the client, while the quick support do not require installation, it's just download and run. So there are a few security differences between them both. And the most common use case for the quick support client is for endpoints that do not belong to the company, external third parties, agents, and third party end users, etc. So the technicians can still connect to a device to support a user that do not belong to the company if the permissions are granted for those technicians to connect to them. All permissions are managed via TeamViewer web app or classic management console. This UI that we can see here is called Classic UI. We released a few months ago the new UI, but the functionalities are all the same. So this is the new UI. We also have full client, host, and quick support, and we can also configure in one of the policies to control which UI would be shown to the end users and technicians, if the new or the classic. But the features are the same. So this basic connectivity being set up, what we have from many customers that we always request us is more security, more enterprise functionalities. And we just bundle these functionalities in a license that we call Tensor, TeamViewer Tensor. So what do we have on TeamViewer Tensor that is different from the classic basic connectivity? All the platform, or the entire TeamViewer platform is based on a cloud software as a service architecture. So TeamViewer Free, Premium, Business, Corporate, and Tensor, and all other licenses run on cloud-based environment. What differs between all those licenses are the features that are enabled in the backend or available for the technicians and end users. One major difference from the Tensor that we have available on Tensor, though, is the integration with cloud identity providers like Entra ID, Okta, Google G Suite, and so on. So with this automation, with this credential integrations, we can uh, consolidate all your usernames and passwords, all your credentials in one database that is your actual identity provider, like Microsoft Entra ID or Active Directory. You do not require separate credentials from different databases. Also, some automation to create and remove accounts and groups. Another feature that we have included on Tensor is the support to access mobile devices, Androids, iOSs, Zebras, and etc. So on other licenses, it's necessary an add-on license. On Tensor, they are included. All TeamViewer sessions, including the free ones, they are end-to-end encrypted, so super secure from both sides. Only the two endpoints can see what's being managed, what's being dealt between the two endpoints. Nobody in the middle can see what's going on. We have additionally to this security stuff, we have also some partnerships that we can provide on Tensor platform as additional license. So we can perform and distribute sessions and connections with our partnerships like ServiceNow, Salesforce, Jira, Intune, Microsoft Teams, and etc. So within these security controls, we have the TeamViewer conditional access that we can granularly control who can access what in a much more granular and secure way to perform those connections. Also, we have auditability. Everything that happens on TeamViewer ecosystem will go to the logs. So if a policy is changed, if a new account is created, if a rule on conditional access is enabled, disabled, changed, etc., everything goes to the log. TeamViewer is a German-based company. TeamViewer is under the GDPR laws, and we need to be secure and provide this security for our customers. Also, last but not least, we have some AI and session insights together with some automations that we can provide also on Tensor platform. So these are the main differentiators from Tensor to the other solutions, to the other licenses that we have on TeamViewer. Single sign-on, mobile devices, and auditability. They are included on the Tensor Basic licenses. And additional to this Tensor Basic, we have the possibilities of integration add-on, conditional access, and other add-ons such as AI, session insights, automations, and etc. So let's take a look on some of those integrations and features and functionalities that we have on the security side. Initially, let's take a look on the single sign-on and automated provisioning. The main idea is to keep credentials unique, secure, automated. So the main idea is to reduce the amount of credentials and password management from both sides. So protecting those credentials against theft or hacking on that sense, and also centralizing password management, so fewer passwords, more security, and automate the provisioning or deprovisioning of accounts. So when we open the TeamViewer client and we need to authenticate ourselves, or the TeamViewer client or the web portal and we need to authenticate ourselves, we are pushed to our existing identity provider to perform the authentication. For example, Entra ID is one of the most common ones that we have. On the other side, we also have the provisioning. So we have the existing users and user groups from Entra ID, from Active Directory, and we can automatically create or remove them from the TeamViewer ecosystem. So when a new user joins the company, a new technician joins the company, his account is added to a specific Active Directory group, and his account and this group are automatically created into the TeamViewer ecosystem. And when this technician authenticates themselves, the single sign-on part of this integration push him back to the single sign-on to perform his credential and authentication. So also in the same way, when the technician is moved to another department or leaves the company, when we disable his account on the Active Directory side, it's automatically disable its account on TeamViewer side as well. So full automation on provisioning on the provisioning accounts. So let me show very quickly how it works on the real life scenario when a technician needs to authenticate himself. I will use here the TeamViewer web client. This also works for the TeamViewer full client that we showed a few slides ago. So when I authenticate myself, I type my credentials here for one generic domain that we have, teamviewer.com, and I type my password. So this is a TeamViewer local password. The TeamViewer single sign-on part can be automated, and instead of typing my credentials, we'll just push to my existing credentials on Entra ID. And this is configured domain per domain. So we have configured one special domain here that we can test and show this working. Instead of teamviewer.com, I will type teamviewer.de. That is our domain with single sign-on enabled. And when I type continue, what's going on in the backend? It's TeamViewer is talking to Enter ID, authenticating myself in my existing credentials, and voila, here I have my login section. I can even see my authentication, my user, my profile, my configurations, and everything else. Even though I'm using a Mac OS, so it's not restricted to Windows only, this integrated single sign-on, but also to any kind of platform. And once I'm logged in, I can also navigate to all the menus, all the sessions, all the groups, even connect to devices automatically. And here I'm using the web client to perform this connection. And voila, connection is done. I can start supporting my end user as much as I need. So the single sign-on and the automated provisioning are super simple in that sense. We don't have uh, much complexity to make it work. It's just some configurations inside the TeamViewer environment when we create the domains that will be verified, and we have all the configurations inside on this connector on TeamViewer side and Entra ID side. You can configure some inclusion and exclusion lists, which are the people or the accounts belonging to the single sign-on domain that will not be part of the single sign-on process. So they will keep to use, they will remain using local passwords. So we can have flexibility and granularity in that sense. So this is the single sign-on process, and the accounts and users being provisioned via this key connector on Enter ID to TeamViewer are listed here, just like any other regular account. We can also see the groups and also the status. The status show if the API synced. It refers to the groups created from Active Directory. The manual ones are locally created here. So they all belong to the same group and category of objects, groups, and users, and we can use them as much as we want. So this is the single sign-on process, super simple, super easy, and super important for companies regarding security. The second part I'd like to show today is auditability. So all connections, all configurations, all activities that are performed inside TeamViewer environment will go to the log. Super important regarding security, as the single sign-on process as well, and conditional access, for example. And this is mandatory for companies that needs to be compliant with some security regulations or any other type of regulations and security concerns as well. If some configurations were changed, what happened inside the connection or everything else. So once we are inside the TeamViewer console itself, we can see the logs, we can filter those logs by date, by author, by event type, such as I want to retrieve all these sessions, all the logs regarding session or user profiles or user groups being created, or even some specific activities like user being created, deleted, or even files being transferred inside the session. So we have many categories of information that we can retrieve from. So once I apply here, I can see all the configurations, all the steps, all the sessions, all the logs from those sessions. Once we click in one of those log entries, we have some details. For example, this is a session being established from this device, this account, to this endpoint. This is the TeamViewer IDs, and these are the username and the device name, and some permissions, some details, some other information. So we can be very granular on the logs, and we can also integrate those logs with any CM solution like Splunk, Elasticsearch, uh, Microsoft Sentinel, and so on. These logs are retained on the TeamViewer tenant for 365 days, cannot be deleted, cannot be tempered, is a view only, and you can give specific permissions to which users, which technicians will be able to visualize those logs. It's not enabled for everyone automatically. You need to give a role to specific users for them to be able to watch, to see those logs and see what's going on. So super granular, super powerful, and it's mandatory for any company regarding security concerns. Let's go to the next topic, that is conditional access. Conditional access is a super secure solution that TeamViewer deployed and developed a few years ago. Before I start showing the connectivity, how it works, I will show the concept behind the connection. So the idea of the conditional access is to have a full and granular control over our connections. We can have multiple routers for a company to perform this connectivity. And if I need to block unwanted connections to happen, TeamViewer conditional access is the most powerful tool to do it. We can be very granular on many options and configurations that we can perform inside conditional access. But let's go for the basics. How a TeamViewer connection works, how a TeamViewer connection happens. Usually we have, for example, in this illustration, two technicians that want to connect to the endpoint. So when they open the full client, reminding the full client is the only one that can perform connection to the endpoints, they will open the full client and they will automatically connect to the TeamViewer cloud infrastructure. In this infrastructure, we have the TeamViewer master servers that controls and store all the data, all the sessions, all the informations. And we have the TeamViewer routers that perform the connectivity and the initial synchronization between those clients. Once the TeamViewer technicians open the TeamViewer full client, they will authenticate themselves on the TeamViewer cloud infrastructure. If they have single sign-on, they are pushed to the single sign-on. If they have local credentials, they remain local. And then if they have all the other permissions to connect to those endpoints, and those endpoints belong to the same company or, like I mentioned, have the permissions to do it, the connectivity will happen and everybody's happy. So when everything is allowed, everything is cleared to connect, the connection will happen. But security is our layers in top of layers of security features. And we can have different layers of control when we want to allow or block TeamViewer connections. One of those layers is you can configure in your network firewall that some users can and some users cannot connect to the TeamViewer cloud infrastructure. This infrastructure, these routers are well known. They have public host names and domains, so we can easily control which addresses, which technicians on the inside can connect to the outside routers, to the public routers that perform this connection. But usually those technicians are skilled people, have some IT knowledge, some IT permissions, even some admin permissions on their own devices. So it can be sometimes easier for those technicians to bypass these security features. So they can, for example, go outside the firewall and go for a 5G connection or a home internet connection or somewhere else and still have the other security features. They need to authenticate themselves. They need to have the permissions on the endpoints and all the other security clearances to connection be performed. But once they have it, the connection will still be granted. So how can we ultimately give more control and more security for those environments? There is one instance in this entire scenario that these technicians cannot touch. The endpoints, their sources, that's their own machines, their own equipment, and also the endpoints that are usually managed by themselves. They can touch, they can do whatever they want. But on the TeamViewer cloud infrastructure, they cannot touch. It's maintained by TeamViewer and TeamViewer only. So TeamViewer conditional access, it's when we deploy this solution to the customers, it starts with deploying another layer of TeamViewer dedicated conditional access routers. So we replace the public ones with private dedicated routers for this company. And we will have some rules of access rules inside this router and allowing or denying connections to be done. So when a technician opens the TeamViewer client, the session flow changes a little bit. Instead of connecting to the public routers, they will open the full client and they will automatically connect to the conditional access router. And inside of these routers, we have rules, access rules, that allows or block the session to be happen. If this technician has a allow rule that permits him to connect, then all the connections and all the necessary steps will be done and the connection is permitted. But if we have a second technician that wants to connect to these endpoints and this technician do not have a conditional access rule, the connection will not be established. Or even third parties. If you're outside your network firewall, for example, you are blocked by the TeamViewer conditional access rule if you do not have the proper rule. So with these dedicated conditional access routers, we TeamViewer deploy them for the customer, maintain, update, and controls their health. And also they have established and fixed host names and IP addresses. So the customers can go to the firewall, to the network firewall, and enable only these conditional access routers to perform the TeamViewer connections. So, okay, I am a firewall manager, and I will say that TeamViewer connectivity will only happen if you connect through the TeamViewer conditional access routers and the rules that are established inside of it. and I will explicitly block on my firewall that all TeamViewer connections to the public routers will be denied. So even if my technician uninstalled the TeamViewer client that is configured to use the conditional access, and this technician installs a regular vanilla client that use the public routers, then your firewall will block it. So TeamViewer is only allowed if you use conditional access routers and rules and not public ones. So it's a combined security feature within TeamViewer conditional access routers, the TeamViewer conditional access rules, and your firewall rules forbidding connections to public routers. This is the basic of how TeamViewer conditional access works. So let's show this in practice. Let's go back to our TeamViewer connectivity. We have here one of those devices that I can connect. So I authenticate myself. I'm authenticated on my client. I'm using the web client here. And one of these devices is from a group that we have here, a device group, and I will just connect to it. So double click, using the TeamViewer web client, I can use the full client as well, and connection is done. So I have this connectivity working at the moment because I have a TeamViewer conditional access environment and a TeamViewer conditional access rule, and the TeamViewer conditional access is alive, permitting me to do it. So let me search it. Here we go. In this menu, we have all the rules for TeamViewer conditional access. So it's just like a firewall for TeamViewer connections. So I can create multiple rules for many sources and many targets, and allowing them what needs to be done. For example, when I create a new rule, these are the basic items that I need to perform to configure inside of the rule, that are the sources and the targets. So the source can be a user, a device, a user group, a device group, or some other parameters, some other activities. The most efficient ones that we've seen with the customers that we always recommend is using user groups from sources. So these user groups can be automatically created with a single sign-on and scheme provisioning connectors. So these user groups, for example, all my technicians, my IT team from Asia Pacific region, and they will be only able to connect to the targets that we establish here. And one example is device groups. So my users, my IT team from Asia Pacific will be only able to connect to my devices on the APAC group device groups. So this is one example of the most common rules that our customers use. We can do many other configurations and so on. So once this rule is set and the TeamViewer conditional access is active, then connectivity works. So for example, as I did a filter before, we have these rules, and I filtered this rule, allowing that we can see here one rule. My account can connect to a device group that contains that virtual machine. So what I will do now is remove or break this rule to remove my access to that virtual machine and see what's happened. What happens on this? So let me just change it to another group, for example. Here we go. So now, in theory, I do not have access to that virtual machine anymore. Let's try to connect it to it and see what happens. Connection. Here we go. Connection not authorized. So now I do not have access TeamViewer conditional access rule to access that virtual machine, even though the machine belongs to me. So this TeamViewer conditional access is applied to the entire planet immediately. So it's super powerful, super simple. And this is one of the main features that we have on TeamViewer conditional access. Enable, disable sources connecting to targets. And this is connection not authorized. This is the common message when you simply do not have a conditional access permission to connect to that endpoint. So let's fix it again. Conditional access, filter, and select my rule that I changed, and I will change it again to that virtual machine, that device group. That is the target. Connecting again. The connection is working again. But the TeamViewer conditional access is not only about allowing or blocking sessions or connections. We have some other features as well. So let me give you another example. In that rule, I do not have only the sources and targets, but I have some other options that I can apply to this rule, specifically to this rule. And one of them is timing option. So this source to this target can connect only during, for example, business hours. And I can define different timing options, business hours, business days, weekends, uh, you name it. So we have full flexibility on creating those options. How do we do this? We can go to the options part here and we add the timing features. So we can set one name, so test power one, and then we can establish if that will be every day, weekdays, weekends, which days, and which time. So I want, for example, only weekdays from 9 in the morning until 6 in the afternoon. And I can create this timing rule and apply to the conditional access rules that I want. So we can flexibilize all the connectivity to these end users. Other option that I have that I can apply to the conditional access rules are approvals, external approvals. So when the source connect to this target, I can establish that someone from a specific group of technicians will receive an email, a notification that the source wants to connect to this target. Do you approve or not? So let's say, for example, I am providing access from my development team to my databases servers to perform some maintenance during the weekend only after hours, after business hours. So I can establish which are the technicians, which are the targets to be connected to, the timing that will be weekends, after hours. And when they try to connect, some database manager or director will receive an authentication, a notification asking, okay, this connection is happening. Do you approve or not? If it's rejected, the connection will not happen, will not be established. But if you approve, the connection will happen. So that's another feature that we can establish inside the sessions. The third one is options. So for this source, to this target, I can apply some options. What can be done inside this session? For example, let me create a feature that says I can enable adding view screens or control the remote computers or transfer files or establish VPN. So I can establish different features, different sessions inside of it and show them to the technician. So when I create those rules and we can create those features inside the rules, I can say that Rodrigo connecting to that device group will have a feature set of needs after confirmation. So the end user needs to confirm that the session will be established. So this is a super important feature because inside the TeamViewer, we have this attended and unattended connectivity. So for some devices, it's mandatory to have confirmations of the sessions being established. So for example, any device with an end user behind the keyboard, let's say your own devices or the computers from HR department or financial department or C-level department, any kind of department that has a person connected to it will have an after confirmation. So the end user needs to confirm that a session will be established. But for some other devices that do not have a user behind the keyboard, for example, virtual machines or kiosk devices, ATMs, airport monitors, and so on, that are not an end user to confirm that session or not. So then for some sources, let's say my technicians, all my group of technicians connecting to the HR department, the after confirmation is mandatory. But if the same group of technicians connecting to another group of devices like ATM devices, airport monitors, they do not have the after confirmation. So they can connect anytime because there's no end user to approve it. So these approvals, features, and timing options are part of the conditional access rule, and they are super important and super granular. So, for example, my technicians level 1 can connect to this target group without file transfer enabled. But the support level 2 can connect to the same group of endpoints and they can transfer files. So we can be very granular on which rules and what features are enabled for each rule. The last option that we have on conditional access are the expiration timeframes. So I can add that this rule from this source to this target with these options are only valid during the next month and not forever, or just for a week, just for the weekend, just for one day. So you can control when this rule is valid with all those features inside. And once the rules expire, or if the rule is not existent anymore, then you receive that connection not authorized message error. So this is very high-level overview about conditional access, how the backend information works, how the connectivity works, and how it is configured inside the TeamViewer Management Console or web app. Moving forward, integrations. Integrations are a super interesting part of the TeamViewer ecosystem, the TeamViewer environment. The main idea is how to shorten the learning curve and ease the TeamViewer adoption throughout my environment. So instead of using 2, 3, 4 different connections, different applications to perform the connectivity, I can use my own main contact form from the end users. So for example, if I have an ITSM ticket like ServiceNow or Salesforce or Microsoft Teams, for example, I do not need to mandatory move out from my interface with the end user, that is those applications, ServiceNow, Salesforce, Teams, to open the TeamViewer client to the TeamViewer portal, find the device name, and connect to it like we did on other sessions. So we can perform these integrations between TeamViewer and some other solutions. We have these integrations with many platforms for many different situations and scenarios. So SAP, IBM, Salesforce, Microsoft, ServiceNow, Ivanti, Freshworks, and so on, multiple connections. Before we jump into this integration demo, how this integration works? What is the key for this integration? So when we perform basic connectivities, we usually have the TeamViewer clients being deployed, and for all the TeamViewer clients, we can see the TeamViewer ID for those devices. So these IDs, these devices are configured, you have the TeamViewer clients deployed, and they are registered, assigned, or affiliated to the TeamViewer company profile, that is this one, inside one device group, and we can simply double-click a device and connect to it. This is one way to perform connections, but not the only way. Another way to perform these connections is using what we call session codes. Session codes are a super flexible and super simple way to perform connections. Basically, we will create dynamically a session code that is one code made of numbers, usually 9 or 10 numbers, and together with it, we can make them available via a link, a web link that when the end user clicks on it, the connection will happen. So these session codes are made for one-time support. These session codes expire in 24 hours. So these are some particularities for the session codes. We built them this way for security. The session codes are exclusive for attended access. So then user will receive this link or this session code and he needs to type something on the TeamViewer client or he needs to click on that link to perform this session. So unattended access, it's not available on session codes. It's always attended. And it also, the session code works with endpoints without admin rights. So for example, if you don't have a TeamViewer client deployed and you receive a link with the session code, you will automatically download the TeamViewer Quick Support. That is the third type of TeamViewer client. So you download the Quick Support, open it up, run the session code, and notify the technician that you are alive, your session is alive, so he can connect, he or she, the technician can connect to you. So this is the core foundation for our integrations using those session codes. Session codes can be created via the TeamViewer client, the TeamViewer portal, or our integrations. The key to our integrations are those session codes. So what we basically do on our session codes, on our integrations, is automating the creation and distribution of those session codes and those links. One of those most interesting integrations that we have, and let's demo today, is the integration with Microsoft Teams. So we can connect to Microsoft Teams. We make Microsoft Teams connect to TeamViewer, integrate with TeamViewer to automate the creation and distribution of those session codes to the endpoints, so the technicians can connect to the end users. And also, we can perform some other nice activities with those session codes, these informations, those sessions itself, using AI, using Copilot on Microsoft, and so on. So let's see it working. For example, we have here one Microsoft Teams session that I am talking to an end user. So I will also connect to my mobile phone. It's an iOS device, and I am just speaking to my end user. Hello, how are you? Here is all my interaction with the end user. And the end user connecting on the Microsoft Teams via the iOS device. Let me just connect you to it. Hello, hi, I need help. So here's my end user interacting with me as a technician. And the technician starts to troubleshoot the problem with the end user, interact with this end user, and eventually it determines, oh, I need them to connect to your device so I can easily and faster help you. So can you, Mr. End User, give me your device name, your computer name, your host name, or your IP address in some very particular scenarios so I can connect to you? So for IT users who are mostly more familiar with the TeamViewer, with IT functionalities like fetching host names, this can be easier. Just open a command prompt, type the command host name, fetch the host name, or we have some other ways, some other systems on the background or the wallpaper of the device to inform that. But it's moving away from, it's not so simple to perform. Another way, some other companies also will have a sticker below your device. So you have the host name below it, or even in your mobile devices. So let's say, in this case, the end user has a sticker with a device name, and the technician asks the end user, can you give me, please, the device name that is on the sticker below your device? So imagine the end user trying to find the sticker on the desktop, or even lifting the laptop to the bottom to try to find the device name and try to type a device name that sometimes is something not so legible like this. So when the technician receives this name, or a name similar like this, he will copy this name, move away from this interface with the end user, going to a TeamViewer client, for example, trying to fetch this name here and hope that the device exists. Because it can be some typos, the name do not exist, the device is not there. But even though I already moved away from my interface from the end user. In this sense, we have a much faster and simpler and intelligent process to connect to this end user to perform support that is even inside Teams itself. So me as a technician, instead of moving away from here and asking the end user information that is not so simple for them to fetch, if it's an end user that is skilled with IT, can be simpler. But if there is an end user that is not so familiar with that, uh, it can be complicated to find the name, the device name. So instead of it, the technician can simply click on this plus button inside Teams and will fetch this TeamViewer application inside Teams. And just send this connect option to the end user, and the end user will just receive a message from the technician. So at this moment, Teams is talking to TeamViewer, authenticated with my account, and fetch that session code that we just saw, fetch the link and push to the end user. So here's the session code, and here's the link for the technician to connect. On the end user, let me show how is it shown. Let me grab a screenshot, send here also for you to see. There it goes, attach and send. So here's the screen for the end user. The end user just received this message below. Okay, this is the session that I'm talking to my technician, and here's the message that the technician sent me to launch the session. Perceive that here for the end user says launch session, and for the technician is join as expert. So the end user do not need to know what is TeamViewer clients, what is a host name, what is IT functionality. They only need to click on that button and launch a session. And this also works with mobile devices. So I'm using an iOS device here, for example. So if the end user clicks on launch session, it will automatically launch my TeamViewer client if I have the TeamViewer client deployed. If I don't have a TeamViewer client on my device, it will push me to the App Store to download the quick support so I can finalize the connection. And once I open the session, the technician can validate if this session is alive or not. I can refresh it here and see, okay, this user is online, so I can join the session. So let me connect it to it. The end user will receive a confirmation. Ooh, connection not authorized. Remember the TeamViewer conditional access, right? So I do not have permission to connect to this device. I need to create a rule, a TeamViewer conditional access rule to perform this connection. So let me close the session. I will start again. Let me go back to the TeamViewer console. For this test specifically, I will deactivate the conditional access just to be faster. Let me create another session code for this end user, just to repeat the process again so it gets easier for understanding. Create a session code, TeamViewer, connect, Teams connecting to TeamViewer, fetching that session code, pushing the link as well, adding as a message to the end user. Then the user receives it, you launch a session, validates if the connectivity works. Let's see if this session is online. Refreshing the status. There we go. I can join the session. You see that even inside Teams is open just another tab, and it's not even using my TeamViewer full client. So on the endpoint, the TeamViewer client is just asking for confirmation and opening the TeamViewer client. And here we go, connectivity as we have. So here we have even easy way to connect an endpoint, let's say on TeamViewer iOS device, connected to it from inside Teams. This works with Teams, with mobile devices, with PCs, with any platform that can run, in this case, Microsoft Teams, to create and distribute session codes. Also inside of this session, that's we can see the end user on the mobile device manipulating the screen and change the features. We also can see the picture-in-picture functionality. So by Apple restrictions, we cannot perform remote control on iOS devices. This is not only a TeamViewer limitation, this is for everyone, but we can perform this picture-in-picture to help guide the users. Oh, please, user, click on this software update part here on the screen that I'm showing on this picture-in-picture, and then user can just select to it to validate, to verify. And this is a patented option from TeamViewer that we can help the end users, guide the end user what needs to be done on the session. So super interesting feature. We can help the end users in a simpler way to perform what is needed to be done inside the TeamViewer configuration. And as I mentioned, works also with mobile devices like Android, iOS, and etc. And I can close the session. Once it's closed here, I can even see my connection history from inside Teams. I do not need to move away from Teams to go to TeamViewer to see all the history of my sessions and also my colleagues that are performing these sessions together with me, that are part of my team. Can filter some of them. I can even see all my active sessions. So if I distributed 2, 3, 4 different session codes to multiple chats that I'm dealing with my end users, I'm multitasking in this case, I can also see which sessions are online and I can connect to them. So this is super important, super interesting way to perform connections and distributing sessions with end users. Super fast, super easy, super simple. Do not need to teach end users and technicians what TeamViewer is. Do not need to teach end users what session IDs or TeamViewer IDs or host names or anything else regarding any kind of connectivity. It's just a message inside Microsoft Teams and connection is happily done. Super interesting, super practical, super secure for the end users. This integration with Microsoft Teams also available for other platforms, like I mentioned, ServiceNow. So inside ServiceNow, that is my ticketing system. When we perform these integrations, there will be some other tabs inside the tickets that are called TeamViewer Remote Control and TeamViewer, so I can create from inside the ServiceNow ticket for that user, for that device, for that specifics. I can create one session code from inside the ticket, start the session, and even see all the logs and the events that were performed for that ticket, for that user, for that device. So all the reports, all the session codes, how much time were spent for troubleshooting that ticket were spent, it's all recorded inside the ticket on the ServiceNow or on Salesforce, on all other integrations platforms that we can connect to. So this is the key and the power of our TeamViewer integrations with our partners. Right, let's move on to the next topic. That is AI in session insights. Super new feature that we just released a few weeks ago and super interesting. When we are connecting to end users, uh, we also face a lot of struggles of the never-ending amount, growing of number of IT support cases, repetitive and consuming tasks, shortages of skilled technicians. So hiring, training, maintaining technicians are even harder for as time goes by. Also, one super important thing, lack of high quality documentation. So creating documentation is painful, it's hard, and it's super complicated to perform. And this also limits the transparency how our time is used within our teams. So we can help you very much with our TeamViewer AI and session summary skills within those sessions. So we can easily connect to those end users. But then after the connection is done, what is the magic? What kind of magic can we perform? So let me connect again to the endpoint. So connecting here to this endpoint. And once I'm performing this connection, and I'm authenticated here, so for example, and inside the session, also we see this notification on the top that session events are being recorded. We can enable and or disable this. This is a feature that we can control if it will be used or not. In this case, it's enabled. So imagine that I'm troubleshooting this with an end user. I'm editing a file, performing some tasks with an end user. I'm closing this. Save, not needed. But then I open, for example, the registry key. So I will find some activities. I will perform some tasks for this end user, uh, change some configurations, change some registry keys, or I will open the control panel to change parameters, update the device, perform my support for this end user. And once this connection is done, these activities, this support is done, I will close the ticket, I will close the session, and life goes on. Usually, as we have less skilled technicians, we have a shortage of technicians. Usually, we have too many tickets to go on, and let's attend that second customer, a third, a fourth, and it keeps going on. So we need to increase the productivity of these end users. But then in the end of the day or the end of the shift, this technician, oh, I need to document what I did for this end user. So I go back to my ticketing system, what was done? Oh, connection is done or problem is solved, but the details are missing. So this deeper level of information, this richness of information is often missed because we are overloaded, overwhelmed with a lot of tickets one after the other. But on TeamViewer, we can help on this. So giving an example, when you go for the connection reports that I perform or we perform for some users and we can filter those sessions, let me find one here. Just refreshing the page, it's generating some summaries. Get one that is more detailed. Here we go. So for example, one of those sessions, I just get the details. The TeamViewer client was used, the Windows Explorer was click on the start button, then search an application, open the regedit, perform some registry keys, some modifications. So we have all the details for that session, even that session that was days ago that I do not remember anymore what was done. So this is a super important feature. So let me get another one. I don't remember what I did for this user or for the next one. So some simpler, some more detailed information, and I can see what was done. And even for some of them, which are the registry keys I edited, or the parameters I changed, or the services I restarted. So this is a detailed view, but I can also create the summary overview of this session. So I can use this information or the detailed view or those logins for those tickets requests. This is the important thing about this summarization of these sessions and the AI stuff that TeamViewer can provide. We can capture and register what was clicked, what was typed, what was selected on the remote session and document it for you automatically. Of course, all this information is logged and retained in your own tenant. It's not shared with anyone, any other tenant, any other sessions, not even for TeamViewer internally itself. So all this information is for you, by you, and for you alone. Super important feature to save time and give granularity, information, and richness of this information. Also, together with this information that we can provide, inside of it, we can go for AI dashboards and get these insights. It's not only the session summary, but also the insights. As we are recording these sessions, those summaries, and everything else, I can also categorize all those insights for you. So, which are the most common used troubleshoot application or services or instance? So, we can predict, react, or even prevent some activities using information that we are fetching from real life cases that you are supporting. So, this is super rich, super important for these end users, for these companies. We can prevent which are the most faulty applications, or if we are missing some training to the end users for one specific application, for one specific system, for one setting, or there is a device, a hardware, a driver that is faulty and we need to do a preventive maintenance to reduce the amount of tickets. So we have many different cases and possibilities for this summarization. And that's why we can help you. TeamViewer can help you create this information from your own life experience and give you guidance where you need to act. Document it, saving time, giving more productivity, and much more rich information for all your supporters. So this is basically what we had for today. I also documented here. We can give you some highlights and overviews about the session analytics and sessions insights. Thank you very much for the session today. This covers some of the most important features that we have on TeamViewer side with recent updates like the session summary and AI, but also covering sign-on, scheme provisioning, automated provisioning, conditional access, event logins, integrations, the session codes itself, and also with AI stuff for our customers. Thank you very much. See you next time.